Recording and we'll get started. All right, we're recording. And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar, GSA Polaris's Task Order Management, sponsored by Capture 2 Proposal and also Trident Proposal Management. We're glad that you could join us today. We're actually just going to be walking through a couple of slides that are going to guide the topic today to help us understand how to best manage task orders to get the most out of the Polaris program. So at this point, we're just gonna kill the video so you have better bandwidth. So if we disappear, don't panic. This is actually just planned ahead of time. We may come back on video once we're actually presenting ourselves, but for now, we're just.
Hey, Nelson, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you guys turned your cameras off and then everything went away. So I was scared to turn mine off.
Okay.
If you kept talking, I don't think we heard it.
No, by show of hands, everybody heard me. Everybody can hear. Let's do a quick check. Since I see people in the chat. Somebody let me know that we can hear. I see that Cassie. All right, we can hear now. Okay. Well, I tell you what, I'm just not gonna mess with buttons. I'm just gonna leave it like it is, and we're just gonna plow ahead on this one. So you're gonna enjoy my mug for the rest of the presentation. How about that?
Okay. Nelson, can you hear me at all?
We can hear you fine.
All right. Great. So I finally get audio working. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. So back to the presentation. Key takeaways are four, right? So first one is make sure that we do proactive task order management to make sure that we get the most out of the Polaris bid. Second, we're going to basically discuss why we should want to use data to make the most out of the Polaris task order. Then we're going to talk about which data and how to use it. And lastly, we're going to dive into why we should actually have a PMO, a program management office, to make the most out of Polaris and just make it rain. Our sponsors today, as I had mentioned, were Trident Proposals. Trident Proposals is a small business. It's veteran-owned, founded in 2008, and we specialize on all things related to capture management and proposal management. So anything from market management, capture, proposal writing, and coaching, Trident Proposals is here to actually just to help out. Also sponsored today is actually the Capture M2 Proposal team. They have a leading edge BI tool that is actually just founded on artificial intelligence. So anything that you want to know about task orders, anything that you want to know about the federal government task order process, activities, and contracts, it's one single integrated tool that will give you what you need to get the most out of your capture and your proposal management team. So delighted that they could join us to sponsor. The speakers today will be Rebecca Wayland from Trident Proposal Management, former naval officer with 8 years of DoD proposal writing experience. She is the co-author of FastProp, a Trident GWAC leader. So she has been deep into the Polaris GWAC for the last year, coming up on a year and a half, almost coming up on 2 years, since we were doing the early tracking on it. But she's going to be talking to us today. I'll be also just joining in and talking about the Program Management Office. I'm Nelson Santini, a former naval officer. I glow in the dark because I'm a former nuke. 25 years of experience in federal government and procurement in federal sales, with about $2 billion in sales related to IDIQs. So I'll be talking about a little bit of how I actually just grew my teams to use task orders and tools like Capture 2 Proposal to get the most out of GWACs. And lastly, from Capture 2 Proposal, we'll have Michelle Griggs. Michelle is an expert on the Capture 2 Proposal platform. She's also an expert on data analysis, and she's actually just going to be walking us a little bit through the interface of Capture 2 Proposals on how to make the most out of the task orders that are going to be posted for Polaris. So delighted to have the team over here. We're going to have some questions and surveys as we go along. Please make sure that you check the tabs so you can be completing the survey as we go. And with that, the agenda is going to be straightforward. A quick recap of Polaris. Why are we going to be proactively managing the task orders? Again, which data to use, and then we're going to talk about the Project Management Office. The slides will be presented, and available to the team later on after the presentation. We'll make sure that we actually send the link to your attention. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca from Trident Proposals. Rebecca, you get the floor.
All right. Thanks very much, Nelson. So I'm going to tell you right now, I will break some hearts today. I do not have a crystal ball that tells us when Polaris is going to be released. We're all still waiting somewhat patiently, I'd say at this point. As you know, the small business and woman-owned small business pools, we were kind of expecting them last fall, and then they got pushed to maybe the beginning of the year, and then they said, well, maybe February, but now it's the middle of March. So we're keeping an eye on that. We do still expect the small business and women-owned small business pools to be released first, with HubZone and service-disabled veteran-owned small business released later in the year. Now, I will just give you a little bit of motherhood and apple pie. As Nelson said, this has been going on for a while now. So while we wait, this is a really good time to make sure that all of your projects that you thought you were going to use are still eligible, right? Because as periods of performance close, as we get further and further away from contract end dates, we just want to make sure that, you know, nothing is becoming ineligible. Or you might be in a situation where you have a project that now has 12 months of runtime or longer, and so you can use it. And so you might just be wanting to take a check at your permutations with your projects and running the numbers to make sure that your strategy still makes sense. I will tell you that once the RFP is finally released, we are going to host a webinar that runs you through the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? The major and the minor changes, anything that would necessitate a change in your strategy. Make sure you understand all the nuances, because we do expect that there'll be some changes, right? It's been too many months for it to have stayed completely the same. And I know that GSA has gotten a lot of industry feedback and has probably been watching some of the other IT small business set-aside contracts that have been, you know, under being procured lately with, you know, CATS out of Department of Commerce and CIO SP4. So hopefully there's some shared lessons learned there. And also just want to make you aware, if you weren't tracking this, that GSA has said that after the solicitation comes out within about a week, they are going to have a webinar as well to help orient potential offers with the opportunity and make sure that everybody understands how to access the submission portal. And I would expect that there'll be a couple touch points as the solicitation response period goes on, just to do check-ins. Obviously, you know, once the solicitation comes out, they're putting off all the Q&A right now. They're not really answering anything. They're saying, thanks so much for that question. Please contact us when you have a solicitation. So if you got that answer from them, you're not the only one. They are kind of in a holding period, so fingers crossed that we're close. Okay, so we would like to do a quick survey and just check in, so we kind of get a sense from the audience that's here, you know, which pools you're intending to bid on Polaris.
Just doing a quick check over here as people are looking at the surveys. Looks like everybody's crunching away. All right, looks like it's a little bit split, but the small business, of course, is actually just leading the pack, so we expected that. All right, look at these totals. Outstanding.
Yeah, we got some people that just want to learn about task order management. That's awesome. And I will say this is the best HubZone representation we've probably seen on a webinar so far. So welcome.
Outstanding.
I'm sure the HubZone contractors are very excited about having a pool just for them in this contract.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's good context for us. Pretty good representation across all the boards. And I would assume that many of you who are planning to submit a proposal in one of the set-aside pools would also be pursuing small business, because the work is mostly done. So even if it's not, you know, even if you don't think you're going to score as high in that pool, I just encourage you to think about, you know, if you've already gathered all your documentation and all your evidence, you might want to throw your hat in the ring there too. Okay, so what we really want to talk to you about today, though, is this proactive task order management, and I want to start by just orienting people to what this means. So when we are talking about task order management, we're talking about having a system that generates, monitors, and helps you pursue bids effectively and efficiently in a repeatable manner, so that you get a system in place so that you can respond to the right task orders. You know what the right task orders look like, and you increase your success of winning work by not getting distracted by all the other things. So you'll find yourself in this cycle of, you know, doing capture, submitting responses, and then taking the lessons learned from the debrief if you're not successful, or moving into the delivery phase, which then just feeds right back into the capture phase, right? So there's this ongoing cycle on an IDIQ or on a GWAC like this that you have to be tuned into. And, you know, wherever you're jumping in, just know that the best thing that you can do is have a system in place that helps you scan these opportunities, track these opportunities, and prepare for them in a proactive way. So why do you want to do this? If you're familiar at all with GWACs or with IDIQs, then you know that getting the initial award is really just a license to hunt. We know that competition at the task order level for Polaris is going to be really intense. We're expecting very short turnaround times for those solicitations that come out. This could be in the 7 to 10 day range. So you may not have the luxury of a 30-day proposal response period like you're used to seeing on some other contracts. Right now, based on the draft RFP, there's no additional set-aside guarantees or percentages. Everything is going to be determined by the ordering contracting officer. So, there is a dedicated hub zone pool. There's a dedicated woman-owned small business pool. There's a dedicated service disabled veteran-owned small business pool. But there's nothing that says that, of all the work on Polaris, 25% needs to go to hub zone or woman-owned. So, Cam, I'm sorry you're having difficulties. Can anybody else hear me right now?
I can hear you.
We will send out the slides as well, and hopefully post the recording. So if you're having, obviously if you can't hear me, you're not going to hear me say that if you're having technical difficulties, we'll reassure you, but we can put that in the chat for the other guys. Okay, so no additional set aside guarantees for percentages. We know that there's going to be price shootouts too. Price right now is not going to be one of the main volumes of Polaris. That could change with the final RFP. But if the price shootouts aren't happening at the IDIQ level, then it's going to happen at the task order level. And we also know that there's going to be competing contract vehicles. There are some overlaps between what Polaris is designed to do and some of the other contracts in existence, for example, VETS 2. So the government is going to have multiple options for procuring services. And you just need to know that, this is a long way of saying that the business is not just going to appear on your doorstep. Right? You're going to have to go out and be prepared for really intense competition in a really short timeline with really qualified peers. So what we want to impress upon you is that getting to a no bid early can actually be the best decision that you can make, right? You don't have to pursue everything that comes out under Polaris. There's no way you're going to be able to do that realistically. There's no way you're going to be able to do that and be successful. So getting something in place that helps you review the task order, say, yes, this is in our wheelhouse, or no, this was clearly designed for somebody else. And it's really like, it would take a lot of resources for us to pursue this and be successful. Knowing what your limits are is really important. Focusing your proposal efforts and selling to customers that you know and understand the needs of is going to increase your P-win too, right? Like, make sure that you're not trying to sell a Cadillac to somebody that wants to buy. I was gonna name another brand, and it occurred to me that I'm probably going to offend somebody. So just I will adjust my my metaphor to say, know what your customer wants and sell them that thing. Don't try to go and market yourself in a space or a landscape that doesn't need the services or the type of services that you provide. The other thing that people sometimes forget to do, or companies forget to do, is actually track the wins, the losses, and the passes. And this can be really, really insightful when it comes to building awareness around critical gaps, either in your technical team, your proposal response team, or your broader team in general of capabilities, or chronic challenges that you face, right? Are you passing on bids because you're just always too busy to respond? In that case, maybe you need more resources, or maybe you need a better method for forecasting. Are you losing on price consistently? Maybe there's things that you can do, levers that you can explore, or experts that you can consult to try and make those tweaks. Because if you change nothing, there's no reason to expect that your outcome is going to change, as we are in this endless cycle of capture, proposal response, and then debrief and delivery. And then compiling those lessons learned is going to help you prevent future mistakes, as we're talking about, identify your best teams and relevant performance, so you can continue to drum up work that fits your team, and you just build that repertoire of success stories. Because if you can articulate to a customer the use case and the value in what you're selling, you're paving the way for better capture and a more competitive proposal. And by the way, guys, as we're talking here, if there are questions that you have, feel free to pop them in the chat. We're keeping an eye on that. We may not be able to answer them right away, but we'll circle back if there's something that you guys want to dive deeper into. Okay, so setting yourself up for success. Now, I grew up in the 90s, so I'm a big X-Files fan, and I will just tell you, the data is out there, right? So there are 4 cardinal rules, though, that we want you to be aware of as you're prepping and setting yourself up for success. First, you need to know yourself, right? Don't try to bid on everything. Don't go after those unrealistic bluebirds that you have no chance of winning. Unless you have endless time and resources and money to spend writing proposals all day long, it's not going to be worth your effort. Make sure you know your customers, right? Know what they need, know where they get it so that you can make the case for Polaris. Know your competition, know who else is in the hunt. When that award list comes out and you're looking at the other companies that got an award in your pool, you might want to do a little bit of deep dive into them and see what their experience portfolio looks like so that you know who else is going to be submitting proposals in the space. And then lastly, this is really important with the GWAC, you need to know the contract so that you can help customers understand how to reach you and what the benefit of Polaris is. So you're going to need to know the ins and outs, how the fees are applied, what services are available to them, what kind of things they can procure, what kind of things they can't procure, so that you can go in and speak intelligently and have all the FAQs that a potential customer could have, right? Because the FAQs, another word for that is just objections, right? So make sure you've got an answer prepped for any question that a customer could have or reason to say no to you, that you've got a counter to, a response that you can say, actually, Polaris would be really good because, XYZ. So these are the 4 cardinal rules. Like I said, the data is out there. And at this point, I'm going to actually turn it over to Michelle to talk a little bit more about things that you can see and how a tool like Capture 2 could help inform that perspective. So Michelle, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. That was a great introduction. And I apologize to those who want to see us interact, but I can't seem to get both my camera and video working at the same time. So I think you need to hear me more than you need to see me right now, right? As we go. First, I'm going to talk a little about which data and how to use it. When you proactively pursue and try to choose to make your bid no bid decision on the best task orders. So the federal government spending information on information technology continues to grow. So there's definitely going to be opportunities out there and probably more opportunities each day. So having ideas about what you can win, where to look, and how to use the data to help you is going to be big. Getting on Polaris is obviously the entry point. Winning the task order awards is really the crucial goal for everybody. And just like you can use data to make a bid no bid decision on Polaris as a whole, you can use it to make the best decisions on which task orders are right for you. If you remember, we did a joint webinar, probably over the summer, when we helped everyone look at whether Polaris was the right vehicle for you. So now we're using the time while we still wait for this contract to come out to start talking about how to decide on the task orders once you've made that decision to bid on Polaris and win your seat. Okay, so we have another survey here. And this survey is, which research tools do you currently use? Do you use C2P, Capture to Proposal, Bloomberg, Deltek, or SAM.gov or other government sites? And none, you just call all of the project manager offices and go the old school route. So I can
nobody's going old school. Everybody's at least using one of the tools. That's all right. Noble. I like that.
Okay. I mean, personally, I'd love to see a higher percentage of you on C2P, but I'll explain why you want to do that once we get to that portion of this webinar. And right now, thanks for your responses, and we will get into some of the data. Well, I've got 1 or 2 more slides before we get to the data slides. So what data to use in the bid no bid? Know your customer and know the competition. As Rebecca said, these are pretty important details. If you're not sure of these, you should be digging into the data and finding out more about which customers you're going after, who your contacts are with them, and who your competition is. You can also look to find teammates. You can look to see what the competition level is I'm losing my train of thought for a second, by the incumbent, and by other different areas. So during our last webinar, we actually said that this isn't the vehicle for you if you're looking for vet work. You have vets too for that. Well, now, of course, they've decided to add a pool for service-disabled vets. So today we're going to use a little bit of data to try to determine what types of tasks will go to each of Polaris and vets. It's a little bit of guesswork, but we're using data to pave the way. So I hope you find that interesting. That'll be at the end of the data presentation. How to get the data for these decisions. FPDS spending data is often key. That is what we provide most often through capture to proposal for determining how much a incumbent is worth, who was on it, which contractor, how many modifications, what were the changes? Are they likely to affect your ability to bid on the follow-on? Use all the information you can gather. Agency spend data, pre-solicitation documents, and use those to focus on the most relevant factors for evaluation. Some key things to review are the obligated funds determine actual spend, not ceiling values. So you do want to make sure you're paying attention to that difference. You may have a wonderful ceiling value on a piece of work, but if they're not spending to the level, then chances are the amount of money they're going to give for the next year's or the next iteration of the contract is going to be lower. The number of offers received is one of my favorite things to look at in awarded contracts to determine the level of competition. I like looking at it by set aside so that you kind of know in the set aside you're going to have more or less competition. I love looking at it compared to the obligated funds to determine, okay, how much does the amount of money affect the level of competition, and using some other different variations on that. But number of offers received is definitely a key piece of information you don't want to overlook. And then with competition all within the set-aside group, same set-aside group for each pool, knowing where you provide the most value is even more crucial than ever. If it's being released to your pool, everybody's got your set-aside, other than possibly in the small business pool, but probably you're going to be competing against similar competition. So you really want to make sure that you're looking at the contracts where you have the highest possible chances of winning and where you know what your competition is and who might be a possible teammate that will help you get that win as well. All right. So for our analysis here, I just wanted to give a few details on what data to use for Polaris. Alliant 2 small business was canceled, so there's no direct incumbent for Polaris. This makes it a little trickier to do an apples-to-apples comparison of what's going into it or what differences there are between the Polaris incumbent and Vets 2 as far as what work is going to them. But we're using the Alliant vehicle and even the Alliant small business original vehicle and the Alliant Full and Open's original vehicle to kind of understand the customer base and work scope. We did this in more detail in the last one. This time I'm looking more at the past 5 years of data to keep it as relevant as possible. So it's going to be a lot more of the Alliant to Full and Open contract as far as determining which customers are using this vehicle and to determine what the work scope is. So the pools are all new as well, so there's not a whole lot of previous data that would connect between Alliant and these specific pools, but we're going to use as much historic data as we can to make these decisions. And again, like I said during the last slide, you can use additional methods to slice and dice the data to find your work. Look by customer, look at your teammates and your competition. Again, look at the number of bids, and then you can use any other factor that you've found is particularly helpful for determining your win rates in the past. There's a lot of data out there, so just really think about it analytically and determine what are the things that I know lead to success for my team. All right. So now we're into some of the data, and these slides may be hard to read if you're on a smaller screen. Just remember that you'll be able to get a copy of them later. And for this, we're just looking at the funding by contracting agency based on this NICS code in the past 5 years. So 541512, which is the NICS code required for getting a spot on Polaris. And you can see Federal Acquisition Service, Veteran Affairs, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services are the three biggest vendors. We know we've got VETS 2 as a vehicle. We know we've got the CIO SP3 right now and CIO SP4 coming out. So we'd have to do a little bit more digging to try to determine who's both in this arena and who will be using Polaris. So in our next slide, we take that same data and we look at who is doing their spending on the Alliant 2 vehicle. And again, this is the unrestricted one, so there may be some slight differences, but these same groups are going to have to meet all of their small business quotas, which means that if they're already comfortable with Alliant 2, they'll likely be comfortable with Polaris as well. So we see that Federal Acquisition Service is a big customer here, IRS as well, and Centers for Disease Control is actually still high up there. So you just get a better picture of who the contracting agencies will be by looking at the data, both by the NICS code pool and by the semi-incumbent, I guess we can say, of Alliant 2. All right. And now this is obligated funds in this NICS with any small business set-asides in the past 5 years. We're looking at the highest customers, we're looking at the government contractors, not the customers now. So you can get an idea of who have been the big winners in this area. And I love splitting this up into the 5-year period where you see each year's column, because it just gives you that great sense of saying, okay, well, this company is on the rise, this company's lower. Maybe take a look and see exactly which areas they're getting their work in. I love going down to the product service code level when it's available to kind of see in more detail exactly what areas people are looking at. And we will use product service codes a little in an upcoming slide. All right, so customers, competition, and set-asides, some data. As I said, I love looking by set-aside. I did not actually put the number of offers received on this graph. That's actually this is one place I really love using it in general, but looks like I left it out this time. But this just gives you an idea of how much money and what percentage of the money is being spent in each set-aside area. This is just the NICS across the past 5 years, so we're not trying to look at Alliant specifically, obviously, since they didn't have a small business contract during that time. But null, where the information just wasn't presented, is highest. Usually that would be the same as none. So we can see that a significant amount of the work has gone to full and open businesses. But within the small business sector, we see that total small business set aside is still pretty high up there as far as monetary value. And 8A is up there. And of course, service disabled veterans is up there. So you get an idea of just how much money right now is being spent in each of the set aside areas. It just helps, again, to kind of determine how much money is going there and how much competition you need to worry about by comparing it to the other companies in each area. All right. And now, as I said, I'm providing some information where I'm just trying to do some comparisons between the Polaris or Alliant 2 and Polaris. Alliant 2 and VETS 2. I just realized that my title on this slide is inaccurate, so I apologize there. But looking at the product service code level, again, I think this is good when you're all in the same overall NICS to try to get an idea of what work may go to Alliant to Polaris and which work will most likely stay in the VETS contract. So again, it's hard to read on the screen because we're looking at such a small picture, but you'll get these slides later. And you can see that there is a significant amount of overlap in the vehicles as far as which PSC codes they've been giving work to. However, Reliant 2 also has a significant number of product service codes that haven't been used in VETS 2, and VETS 2 also has a smaller number that Alliant has never had. So if you're looking at the product service code level, you might get a better idea of saying, if I'm in the small business pool, which types of work are more likely to go to Polaris now that they have a service-disabled small veteran pool, versus which ones are likely to go to VETS 2 as an established contract vehicle in that area. And then I just did the same sort of comparison again, this time looking at the contracting offices to see which ones are really working with both of these vehicles, which ones have been more Alliant, and which ones have been VETS. And that way you just get an idea of, if my customer is in the space, will they be on Polaris or similar work? And again, this is kind of speculation on our part, but I think it's a good way to start looking and saying, if I'm a service-disabled small veteran company, do I need to be on Polaris? What work will I get from it? What types of tasks are likely to be available to me through this contract that may not be available through VETS 2 or VETS 3 once that's released? So that is the conclusion of my data. I know that it was fairly brief, but I think it gives you an overview of some of the things to look for and to start parsing as you do your own research into this. And with that, I'll turn this over to Nelson to talk more about Trident proposal systems.
All right, thanks, Michelle. I really appreciate it. It was actually just a good dive into the data. And so I'm just going to talk now about the PMO office. And before we do that, another quick question. So this one is fairly straightforward. It's binary. Do you have a PMO? You don't have a PMO? And the third portion is, what is a PMO? So it looks like we are 50-50. If you take a moment to go to your survey, it's a 50-50 equal between PMO, yes or no, and a couple of folks asking about what is a PMO. We'll get into that one. But for the majority, it looks like most folks, have a PMO or understand what a PMO is or have seen a PMO office. So, okay, it looks like in the sample group responded so far 50-50. So let's give it a couple more seconds. Just yes. So we get yes is creeping up over here, just inching ahead. Okay, so for the most part, it looks like it's even between deciding to have it or not, and then only a few that may have it, but may actually just call it something different, and that's a very good possibility. So think about the PMO. Again, it's an acronym for the Project Management Office. Think of a PMO as an office that specializes in just handling special projects, and one of those special projects may be a GWAC itself, right? So maybe you have a PMO office that handles multiple GWACs, and you have a small PMO team underneath it. But the general gist is that it's an office that's going to handle a special project, sometimes on delivery, like the delivery of a large contract or IDIQ, or in the prosecution of a GWAC, right? So that's kind of like what we're talking about in here. You may call it something different. Sometimes these responsibilities are shared between your sales team / sales operations, and sometimes purely in operations. And that's where they tend to live. So they're kind of like an intermediary between sales, business development, and pure operations, right? And so the reason we care about these PMO, and when we're talking about here Polaris, it's qualifying for Polaris is just the start. It's basically, as Rebecca said before, is your hunting license. It's your ability to now begin to actually just go on chasing work, right? And if you've made a substantial investment in Polaris, we're talking here, if you account for hours spent, it's at least a $15,000 to $20,000, cost of labor just pursuing Polaris and just collecting all the information. You want to make the most out of that investment, right? And so it's one of those things that you want to make the most of the investment, and you just want to make sure you're pursuing the things that make sense. The reason that this is important is, if you fail to bid, one of the things that can happen is you may fall off ramp, and that's basically just getting yourself a black eye in front of the contracting officer. right? So on one end, you could actually just completely get a black eye. On the other end, if you're not ready, you can find yourself actually having your peers within your block. Let's say that you're in the group of the small disabled veterans, and the solicitations begin to come out, and you're just sorting yourself and just taking your time to establish your PMO and go after a few of these opportunities. It's really hard for you to come back from behind and just begin to make up ground. And certainly it's going to make it a lot harder for your capture team to basically just knock on the door and go into the KO's office so you can actually just, sell your products, and or competitively bid. I can tell you from experience, I hate to say, that in one of the solicitations, I've seen folks, for example, in another contract like Seaport E, they basically were, slow to respond to the first solicitations that came out, GWAC like this one, and a couple of folks basically just were blackballed, and or not blackballed, they were so behind the par curve they could never come back and make the most out of the program office, right? So that is actually the two things that can happen if you're not ready. A, you can be blackballed because the KO is not happy that you're not bidding, or if you're coming late to the game, your competitors are going to build their brand, and so you're always going to be behind trying to make up ground. Another good idea and reason to have a solid PMO is, like Rebecca said on her slide and Michelle was alluding to, you got to stay ahead of the task orders because they're going to come in waves, right? We know, and if we've been around in the world of federal procurement, that you have the busy season here in the first half of the fiscal year, and again, you have the mad dash for the end of the fiscal year. And in between, you may have your budget allocation periods. So you want to make sure that you're clear and ahead of what's going to come down the pipeline so you can actually just be prepared for it, right? So be alert, be aware, plan ahead, and also stay away from the duds, right? Rebecca said, hey, listen, lose early. Nobody wants to spend time chasing opportunities. I got to tell you that, having worn the hat of a capture manager or being a proposal team, nobody wants to spend time in putting a solicitation together that you're going to lose. So A, be alert, bid early, bid frequently, stay ahead of the task orders, and again, stay away from the duds, right? So that's why you need a PMO. That's kind of like their reason to exist, is just to make sure that you're getting the most out of that contract vehicle. Trident, happens to have a very solid process that is repetitive. This slide that I'm showing here is actually on how to qualify for the GWAC, right? So we actually just show you this slide when we were talking about how to bid Polaris and how to make sure that A, you met your eligibility, B, that you actually could go through your gap analysis to make sure that you understood, how you were best qualified. C, understanding how you basically make your primary bid decision, and then just working on submitting the proposal, going through the award, and then just jumping into, you can see at the very end, the PMO, right? So that's what we're talking about today. This process over here repeats itself, right? So we can go through a rinse, wash, and repeat, or wash, rinse, and repeat, I'm sorry. So you can actually just follow the same kind of technology or approach so you can make the most out of the PMO office, staying ahead of the task orders that are going to come out, being managed by the program management office, right? So talking about challenges, and for the folks that actually have been, looking at the surveys, right? Looks like the vast majority of folks, like 90% plus, knows what a PMO office is. So if you don't mind, let's go to the survey and just look at these ideas over here. So what has been the greatest obstacle you've experienced in pursuing IDIQ business? And so let's just see what the survey says on question 4. So far, when we do the survey, looks like the greatest obstacle in maximizing IDIQ business has been 1 in 3 is responding, tracking the opportunities. The next one is too busy to write, manage the proposal responses. So that's actually just 1 in 8. 1 in 3 is actually submitting a competitive proposal that you can actually just win the work. Okay, good. So being compelling, all right, and steering customers to use the contract vehicle. Okay, and that's actually just very important. Actually, it's kind of like shaping your task order. So, all right, so identifying, tracking the opportunities is actually just there, submitting competitive proposals for those opportunities, and those go hand in hand as far as actually, the challenges that most folks experience. So that is actually as results as expected, if you will. I don't see anything over here that is out of the ordinary. All right, so tracking the task orders and then making a submit proposal that is compelling, right? So when we go back to the presentation, and thanks a lot for those answers. Again, we'll share these and we'll post them for you, right? a PMO is going to keep you actually in the game, right? And that's actually just, by making sure that you're just going after the right opportunities, right? After the right task orders, right? And so when this is what you do, right? When you are actually just day in and day out, you're living in the world of task orders, you can actually just begin to find the task orders early enough that are going to be for the products and services that your company is offering. So on a tool like C2P, and we'll show you a quick diagram that basically articulates this, that's actually just the point of the PMO. Give them the tools, give them the data so they can look at these opportunities that are coming in and eventually going to be recompeted. We know that Polaris is basically being awarded right now, but eventually those awards for multiple years are going to be recompeted. You can begin to actually just put yourself into the run for those recompetes. The other thing that's really important is actually the next bullet, which is basically allocating the resources accordingly, right? And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of math, on this, but, it's kind of like making sure that if you see the task orders, if you have the products to actually just to bid it or the services to bid it, if you have actually to find yourself a good teaming partner so you can round the bases and make sure you have the right mix of skill sets and products so you can become more compelling to the award, right? And more importantly, that you can actually have the right bandwidth and the right team to actually just do the capture and put that proposal together. Unfortunately, if you look at the two most common responses were, one, I don't have visibility to the task order. And the second one is I want to make sure that I have a proposal that is compelling, right? So when you begin to track these opportunities, when you have a dedicated team or a team that is focusing on getting the most out of these task orders, you begin to know when the task orders are going to be competed. B, you can begin to shape them. And that goes hand in hand with making sure you build the right capture plan and have the right proposal team put together so you can go after those solicitations, right? And so this is actually the diagram that I was telling you about in here, where you can have in just one place all of the data that we were talking about in this particular cycle, right? So I just wanted to kind of like walk you through some numbers over here. And so let's say that you have a goal of actually just getting say $30 million out of this particular task order, and that's actually what your business plan says. So the business plan says we're going to bid Polaris. We need to get $30 million out of it, right? And let's say that the average deal that you have in your company is $5 million and your P-win is 2 out of 3. That means that you got to have at least 9 task orders, in your pipeline at any one given time, so you can actually just go through your win probability and just bring this across the line. So A, looking for those task orders, or B, seeding those task orders by taking that business to the companies that are actually, or the entities within the government, that are actually going to put their solicitation on Polaris, is how you need to be spending your time. That is the job of the PMO. With that in mind, as you look at the task orders that are coming in, you can begin to work on your capture management plan and make sure that you're correctly staffed with the right people and the right teammates so that you have a compelling, argument to win. And the last piece is then you can look at your proposal management team to make sure that when those task orders are falling, into the mix, that you can actually support it. And we've all been there. I'm not going to ask a question, but typically it's a feast or famine. Rebecca, mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we've been waiting for now 3 months plus for Polaris to drop. I can assure you that in your pipeline, you have Polaris and 2 other IDIQs. They're going to be dropping on the same day, which is likely to be on a Friday, right at 4:00 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, right? So when that panic sets in, because you're not ready, oh my goodness, right? Rewind the tape and prepare for that. Hey, we need to staff up. We need to have the team for Polaris. We need to make sure that we have them protected. And the same thing applies for the task orders, whether you have Polaris or other IDIQs. Make sure that you actually have the right capture team and make sure that you have the right proposal management team. And the way that you do that is by following your market intelligence, having the ability to just track all of these opportunities in one environment, right? Some of you may have actually Salesforce. Some of you may have Streak. Some of you may have, insert here, the CRM of your choice, a Sugar or whatever that is, right? That's actually just a great tool to have to track these opportunities. But rarely ever do you have a tool, and again, shameless plug in here for Capture 2 Proposal, where you can actually just have not only the opportunity, linked to the task order, but also have the human analyst insight that's going to help you to actually just understand, hey, is this a task order that I really have a good chance, or am I close enough that I can go and bid this opportunity? Who's going to be in the race, right? All of this information is information that you can actually use track in a tool like a C2P or your favorite CRM. But back to the program office, all of that information runs through the hands of your program management team, right? The PMO office, right? It just so happens that when you have many task orders to look after, it would be really nice to have them in one single environment, so you can have, as we see here in the bottom right, an integrated view of what the truth is. And, if you can actually just have a nice artificial intelligence engine behind it that can begin to learn what, A, you're successful at, B, what good looks like, then you can actually just put your capture team and your PMO office in a position of advantage. So you're chasing the 9 task orders, going back to the previous example, that are going to have their highest probability of winning, because you don't want to be actually just chasing your duds, right? And so that's why the reason why you need to use data, so you can begin to actually just put yourself in a position where, beyond the art of capture and beyond building those relationships, at least you understand mathematically, just, and by probability, where you are more likely to be successful and where you should be putting your efforts, or basically shoring in your gaps, right? And that's actually just one of the benefits of having a tool like, in this particular case, Capture 2 Proposal. Well, it's all integrated. Again, you can have your Salesforce, you can have your Streak, Sugar, whatever the CRM of choice is. We strongly recommend that you have not only the task orders, but the intelligence source and the analyst all put in one place. You can basically just go and do it by yourself, or you can do it with a tool like C2P, or quite frankly, there are outfits like Trident Proposal Services that offer you not only the tool, but also the service of the analyst, where you actually have somebody dedicated just to keep a track and augment your proposal team through the PMO office, and do those functions for you, right? So that's really important, okay? When it comes down to keeping an eye on those task orders, once you program your CRM and once you basically have that into your system, your PMO office should be consistently looking at the new task orders, okay, that look like what you're good at, right? So it's not just looking for the new releases and for the new recompetes. A good PMO office is also looking at things that are just like cousins of, related to, look like, right? Look for similar opportunities that are going to basically help you expand your footprint. Again, that's part of the function of the PMO, and a good PMO relies on data and analysis, so you can actually just manage the finite resources that you have, right? So if I have to kind of like beat on the dead horse of like what's really important, is making sure that you have an office that is looking at tasks that are coming in, being proactive, staying ahead of it, so you can staff up correctly your capture team and staff up correctly your proposal team. And again, entities like Trident can help you with that, right? So when you win Polaris, right, make sure that you're staying ahead of it, stay on track, make sure that you have the right PMO, whether it's a W-2 or 1099s, make sure you have them properly staffed. So if you have to do it in-house, great. If you need to outsource that to companies like Trident, insert here other names, C2P for the engines, make sure that you're spending the right dollars so you can make the most of your investment in a GWAC like Polaris, right? If you do that, you'll be the best friend of the KO. You will not be on their bad list, and nobody likes to be on that side. Trust me, it takes a lot of effort to dig yourself out from the blacklist, or to catch up to those folks that are, quite frankly, right now as we're having this webinar, they're running back to their capture team saying, okay, we need to stand up the PMO for Polaris because we're going to be winning this opportunity, right? So that was the key message, for today. So with that, I hope that my information has been useful. We are going to open up the floor to some questions. So based on new content, Rebecca, Michelle, let's make sure that we're ready for some questions. And so looking at the chat over here.
Yeah, there's some good ones in there. So I will go in reverse order with this. Is the delay in Polaris related to the delay with CIOSP4? If you think that the G in GSA stands for gracious, maybe it could be that they've gotten a lot of feedback from industry that says, hey, like this thing's ongoing and this is your same demographic. Please, please, please push this again. That could be happening. Or, Polaris is supposed to be sort of this end all be all contract, and we know those are complicated. We also know that the whole reason Polaris came about was because, Alliant 2 Small Business got protested into oblivion. So my guess is they're going through some pretty rigorous due diligence to make sure that they are closing the loopholes where they can without unnecessarily limiting competition. Remember, there's going to be a separate submission portal that's going to have, user interface challenges and SOPs and things like that they need to work through. They didn't address in any of the industry days that I saw or in any of the draft RFPs what they're going to do with information that's classified higher than unclassed, right? So anything CUI, anything secret, which we know some companies are out there doing, because a facility clearance is one of the optional, certifications that they're going to score points for. So they may just be working through the logistics and the details of the contract. Nelson or Michelle, any thoughts on that?
I actually just I'm with you on your comment. I have nothing else to add unless Michelle has anything else to add. I think that you're spot on.
No, I agree. The protests and the cancellation of Alliant 2 SB, as well as some of the other protest issues that have occurred with the GSA major vehicles lately are definitely making them a little slower, and I think a little bit more gun shy on pulling the trigger until they've gotten all the information and feedback they can from both the contracting audience and the contractors.
And then we had another really good question about, guidance on how to identify the wired task orders, because obviously we're telling you
Now, I'll jump on that one when you're ready, but go ahead. You were talking, so go ahead. I can jump on that.
Yeah, well, so my initial thoughts were this can come in a lot of forms, and just keep in mind there's a fine line sometimes between an opportunity that is wired for an incumbent and one that's just poorly written, right? So sometimes they are exclusionary without meaning to be so. But things that stick out to me if I'm, helping a company make a no bid decision would be if there's some really unique requirements, right? If there's a logistical or facility component that, if this is a kind of a remote place and they want a certain footprint there, that could be an indicator. Key personnel qualifications is an area where we see people sneak things in sometimes. Scenarios. This is the new flavor of the month with proposal responses, right? Is you don't just talk about how you're going to respond to technical tasks. You actually have to tie them together and describe how this would work in a theoretical situation in your customer's environment. Those can be really difficult to respond to, but they are reasonable questions for the government to ask. So that can be one way to skirt the way that they're not limiting competition unnecessarily. The other kind of key sign is that if you're doing active capture with a customer and you're talking to them and you think the relationship's going great, and then an opportunity comes out that surprises you that you weren't tracking. Sometimes they are tight-lipped about things because they want you to not have a lot of time to respond, and they want to maximize that short response window. So those were some immediate things that came to my mind. But Nelson, you probably got some blood, sweat, and tears in this space. So I'll turn it over to you.
No, that's fine. And all good points that you present in here, but I mean, taking a different approach, because the question is, how do I, identify if it's wired? So everything that you said is true. For example, a good PMO lives in the office of the KO and lives with that staff, right? So they actually just know because they've been seeding the opportunity. So let's say you're tracking that task order and you are the one who has seeded in there, for example, the special qualification to have that special certified service person that nobody else has. If you don't see that on the task order, you can say, oh my gosh, there's something wrong in here. Or if you see it exactly as you shaped it, then you're in a better place, right? So that's one of the key things. Also that relationship, when you are actually just, in a good PMO relationship with your peers, the folks that work with you, they actually will have the intel and they will tell you, hey, listen, I am bidding this and this is my task order, stay away from it, right? And that is something that's really useful. I cannot tell you the amount of time that I saved by not going after something that I had all of the qualifications, but I didn't know that it was actually just wired for one of my peers. And likewise, I did that same favor, which was, hey, this over here, this is my work. Okay. And again, it's not colluding. It's actually just making sure that you actually just work with your teammates so they understand when it's wired to you and using your market intelligence. You can look at special qualifications. You can look at the special requirements. You can also, like Rebecca said, understand and see if somebody was actually just putting something that was a quick response, right? And so when something like that happens, you have a good indication that, hey, there's something fishy about this. They want to put it out and get out of the market very quickly. So there are ways, and again, clear indicators that have a high probability of when something is wired. But the bottom line is, for you to do that, you gotta, collect the data. You have to be watching it. And so having a good PMO that is actually just always tracking that data, working and collaborating with a capture team, that is the best bet on that, making sure that they're always keeping their ear to the ground, talking with the KO, talking with your peers, and talking also with your suppliers, right? A good indication is if you're talking with your suppliers, let's say, for example, you're not into the services, but you basically provide equipment, right? And you're talking with your suppliers, let's say that you track satellite equipment, and you basically are talking with your suppliers, you're trying to put an order, and they tell you, hey, no, I cannot take that order for those amplifiers. Then when something like that happens, it means that they're already working with somebody else. So you indirectly, you may know that A, there's a solicitation that's coming, and B, that you're not in the mix for it, right? So all of those are things that are, again, part of the discipline and capture. And if you're interested and want to learn more about it, please drop us a quick note. Glad to have another webinar just on PMO and how to basically do the better tracking and just share some of the lessons learned over 20 years and $2 billion in wins. So it comes in handy to actually just have a few of these tricks of the trade.
Okay, can I just add another little comment here on data? You're right, it is mainly about relationships and knowing and talking to the right people. But if you happen to be newer in the area and want to get a feel as you're developing the relationships and sound like you're in the know when you start talking and creating these relationships, look at the data on the incumbent. You'll be able to tell from the spend rate, from whether there are mods, from whether there are new additions to the scope that have been added to the incumbent contract, how happy the customer is with their current contractor. If they're not happy, they're not going to be adding to scope, adding to time, giving new types of work under the existing opportunity. If they're doing all those things, there's a really good chance that they're going to stick with the incumbent. And you'll start to see in the data all of these little clues. The more you look, the longer you work at it.
Absolutely. Cheers to that.
Right.
Other questions that we have from the team? I didn't see anything else coming up on the chat. I know that we're actually just at time, but we're glad to hang back if there are anybody has additional questions.
There was one more, and unfortunately, I'm not going to give a direct answer to this, but the number 2 question we get after when is this coming out is what do you have to score, right? What's your gut feeling on this? And the short answer is you have to score high. But I'm not gonna put a bracket on it, right? Because we don't have final criteria yet. We know what the targets are. But the reality is that there's a lot of administrative gotchas on this. So there are going to be people who submit bids that are non-compliant and eliminate themselves from competition. And I don't know, because you all are going to get graded on a curve. I don't know how well each of your peers reads the instructions, but that will get a vote. Obviously having a really good portfolio is important, but being able to submit your documentation and follow directions is equally important on a bid like this. So, if you're scoring pretty high, then I think you should go ahead and submit a bid and just make sure that your documentation is locked down and airtight. Because like I said, there will be people who think that they're in a really competitive spot who get their feelings hurt because they didn't read the instructions and submit things appropriately.
Now, that's a last question that just popped up, and good answer there, Rebecca from Sohail Safir. Is there still time to team up for a Polaris proposal bid? Based on the delays, you would argue that yes, there's time, but the key question is, like Rebecca said, do you actually have the right past performance and the right team to join with, right? And so I think that is one of those that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you want to team up, you got to hustle, you got to find those people really quick. So time is not your friend in this particular case, just being frank with you. And it's a good exercise to make sure that you find out if you have the right elements, find out where you're gapped, and then figure out, how do you go about it. I would strongly recommend that you go to Trident Proposals blog page and look at the webinar that we did on teaming. There's some good guidance in there. So just go to their the blog and search for teaming on Polaris. And there's a webinar and a presentation that talks about it. If you have any specific questions that we can answer in more time, please drop us an email. We'll be glad to help you through that process, because there's time, but the short answer is you got to hustle.
You got to do it right so you don't penalize yourself.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay, well, I have no other questions. I actually just a shameless plug. If you're still interested in bidding Polaris, there's a couple of packages to help out our customers. So, we're going to make sure that you get that offer. via the presentation. We're going to share it with you. If there's no other questions, thank you, Michelle, for your time. Thank you, Rebecca, for your time. Thank you for everybody for attending. Presentation will be posted, so you'll get an email from us with a quick survey, so you can download the presentation and also just get a shot at the video. But without any other questions, we're done. Thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thanks so much for your participation.
Thank you.
Cheers all.